All right, it is 3 o'clock, so let's get started. Now, first off, I just want to welcome everyone to the workshop. I've got a ton of stuff packed in for today. Actually just went through this with a bunch of our coaching clients, and they're all excited to get this going. So I'm so excited to share this with you all. And one thing I just want to kick this off with is congratulating you all for being here. And the reason I say that is anytime we go and offer something out to people, there's always a whole bunch of people that say, yes, they're interested in it. For example, when I just put up a Facebook post on this, I think there was nearly 100 people that said they were interested. Now, what always happens, and it doesn't matter what you end up doing, when something's free or when something's offered, a lot of people raise their hand and say, yes, I want it. Then what happens is when people are forced to take that first step, which in this case is registering and actually showing up for this training, a bunch of those people fall off. And then when we get to the next step of now actually taking the information that you learned here and taking action, more people fall off as well. So I want to congratulate you guys because you're taking the first step and you're here. Now, what I also want to do is have you think about your intentions and why you're here today. So are you here just to listen? Are you here to listen and pick some things up that you're going to take action on? Are you here to fully commit to doing what you need to do to succeed? And the reason I ask that is because, we've all seen it. You guys have probably been there as well, where we do things with the best intention. We listen to a podcast, we buy a book, we buy a course, and ultimately what we don't do is we don't take the action. We don't make the commitment to see it through. And then we end up in the same place 90 days or a year from now where we're not at the success place that we want to be. And it was because we didn't commit to the process. So I want you guys to just think about your intention of being here today and really what you want to get out of this and whether or not you're here just to listen or whether or not you're here to commit and actually take this information and move forward. So I just want you guys to think about that as we go forward today. Now, let's talk a little bit about goals before we dive in too deep. Now, goal setting may actually be keeping you stuck. And a lot of what we've seen happen, we've been doing goals for years, is that a lot of people set goals, and it's pretty crazy if you go and look at the success rates of people that actually succeed with goals. It's actually pretty low. In a couple different studies that I looked at, up to 92% of people that set goals don't actually achieve them. Now, that's pretty staggering. And it's not just about not achieving the goals, but it's the impact of not doing that. And we've experienced this ourselves when we set goals and weren't able to achieve them. But there's a lot more than just not achieving the goal. Part of it is financial. If you have a goal to, let's say, build your business, leave your job, do some of the things that we always talk about, and you're not able to hit your goals, that means that you're not able to do those things that you're looking for. There's an emotional state on not being able to achieve your goals. There's a financial impact on not being able to achieve your goals. And ultimately, if you get into this stage of setting goals, not achieving them, setting goals, not achieving them, that can really impact you. And a lot of times, the biggest challenge that we see a lot of people run into is they hear this advice, which I hate, that says, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll still end up among the stars. And what people are saying by that is set really big goals, right? And even if you don't achieve those goals, you'll still end up in a good spot. Here's the reality. If you're consistently setting really big goals and not achieving them, you're going to feel like a failure, even if you do really good things. So what you want to do instead is you actually want to set goals that aren't really big, but are actually obtainable and will be something that you can work towards, and you build off of the wins from achieving the goal to move on to the next one. So the final thing I'll say here is that you guys have all probably heard of SMART goals. So SMART goals are good. The problem is they're just incomplete. And what I mean by that is I love this quote I came across recently, and I think it sums up so well a big challenge that a lot of people have. And this is from Nathan Latka. He put a book out recently, and it says, systems are what make the rich richer, and goals are what keep the poor poorer. And now I had a lot of people look at this quote, and they're like, that doesn't really make sense. What does that mean? And here's the problem. Goals are what you would like to obtain. And the reason most people fail with goal setting is because they set a goal, but they don't actually have a system in place to check in on that goal and actually do the work required to achieve it. So a lot of people get into the cycle of setting a goal, not achieving it, setting a goal, not achieving it. If you look at people that actually do succeed with their goals, it's because they've got a system built out, not only for setting the goals, but for actually obtaining that. And so what we're going to do today, and my promise to you, is that I'm going to share the system, not only the system that we use with our clients, but this is actually the system that we use ourselves to set goals and then ultimately make sure that we're able to break them down, do the required action to ultimately achieve those goals. So that's my promise to you as we go through this workshop. Now, what does that mean more specifically? By the end, you're going to have a process for setting your goals. And what you're going to find is that we talk about setting your goals in your life as well as in your business. Because if you're trying to do one without the other, you're going to run into challenges. We're also going to give you a framework for then how to take your goals and take that into running your business. And finally, we're going to help you understand what stage your business is at and then what you need to focus on, which will tie into your goal setting of how to get to the next stage. So with that, we're going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. If you guys have questions along the way so you don't forget them, leave a comment in the chat. We'll be collecting those. Ariana's in the chat to answer any initial questions. Otherwise, we'll collect them at the end because I want to make sure that you guys come out of this not only with an understanding of the process, but then the ability to take this and implement it yourselves. And what we're going to do for you guys that stay till the end, we're actually going to give you free copies of the worksheets that we use to help people set their life goals as well as their business goals. So stay till the end. We'll give you guys the link to get that. Now, one thing I just got to say is a lot of times when I present this to people, what they usually come back and say, well, duh, Tom, that's pretty basic stuff. You didn't teach me anything new. Here's the reality. The most successful people keep things simple. So what we've done with this process is really taking it back to the basics, and we actually don't want complexity. So I want you guys to keep an open mind as you go through this, not to say like, oh, I already know that, there's nothing new. What I want you to think about is, am I achieving the goals and having the success I want? And if not, what is it that I'm learning here today that's maybe the disconnect, right? So don't gloss over these. Realize that there's stuff here that is going to help you ultimately achieve those goals in a way that you're probably not doing today. And so just putting it out there, we ran this training in a group with Arnie Giske. He's got a group called Millennial Entrepreneur Community. It's got about 78,000 people in there. And after we got done with the training, Arnie reached out and said, you know, this framework that you just showed us in this free training is up there with the programs that I've paid thousands of dollars for. So I just want you guys to know that this is the system that we coach on. This is the system or a similar system that you'll get if you go and spend money on other programs, and we're giving it all to you guys for free. So who am I? If you guys aren't familiar, I'm not going to give you my whole backstory, but essentially family comes first for me. And when I left college, I had a degree in computer science. I realized that wasn't the path that I wanted to be on. And so little did I know, I actually set my first goal, which was to retire, quote unquote, by 35. And Ariana's in the chat. She'll tell you a little bit. She thought this was crazy. And what we ended up finding out was that over the next several years, we had different thoughts on our goals and what we wanted things to look like. And so we ended up going through this process time and time again, ultimately coming up with not only a system that worked for us, but a system that helped other people do the same thing. So during that time, you know, I went back to grad school, got my master's. I went and worked as a corporate business consultant. I was actually traveling 4 or 5 days a week to work with these like Fortune 500 companies. We've got a real estate investing business. We've got multiple businesses that we run. We speak. We got a book coming out this year. And I tell you all of that to say that because we got really good at setting goals and putting a system in place for achieving those, Ariana and I both were able to leave our jobs before 35, and now what we get to do is actually help other people do the same thing. So this is really what goals can do for you if you understand the system of how to run them. And so just quick, these are a handful of the corporate clients that I used to work with. So I'm not just some, you know, guy that picked up a book on goal planning and is now showing it to you guys. Like, this is the stuff that I lived and breathed for years with these billion-dollar companies. As well as we've used this to develop multiple businesses of our own. You can see our first business when I was actually back doing a lot of the installation on our real estate business, to our wine and liquor store when we kicked that off and now built a team for that so that those two businesses can run largely without us, to ultimately, our coaching business, where we're able to take a lot of the lessons we learned in our businesses and working with corporate clients and ultimately apply that to entrepreneurs and helping you guys build these businesses that create freedom. And so what that allows for us is to live this life that we enjoy today. And that's what we want for all of you guys as well. We want to help you set the goals for your business that allow you to create the life that you desire. Okay, so ultimately, who is this for? This is for anybody that struggles to set and ultimately achieve their goals. This is for anyone that's looking to create more impact with their business. This is for anyone that's looking to create more freedom in their life. And finally, this is for entrepreneurs and business owners that want to take their business to the next level. So this stuff can apply for non-entrepreneurs, but what we're really going to focus on is not just goal setting, but doing that in the context of being an entrepreneur. And I want you guys to focus, because this webinar is different than a lot of other webinars, where we're actually going to open up the curtains and show you everything that we do with our coaching clients, right? So we're not going to hold back and make you guys buy something at the end of this. Yes, we'll have opportunities for you guys to work with us if you want more support, but we're going to give you everything that we do. So I want to make sure you guys are paying attention. And I love this from Kaylin, who's worked with us in the past. After we got done doing this, she said, I felt really excited and a new sense of momentum that I didn't realize I needed. And she said, I now have the clarity, for my mission, and, I'm sure that I'll be able to complete it. And it's been amazing to see what Kaylin has been able to do once she got that clarity and started implementing this system. Okay, so let's talk about the three main reasons that people fail to achieve their goals. So the first one is that they set their goals without context. And what you're going to see in a little bit is that this ultimately causes you to maybe achieve the goal, but not ultimately achieve the success that you're looking for. The second one is they don't have that process or system that we talked about earlier to make sure that once they've set the goal, they're ultimately able to do the right things and make adjustments to get there. And finally, they have the wrong focus. So they're working on the wrong things at the wrong time to get to where they want to be. So what we want to do is actually dive into each one of these and show you guys specific actions you can take to make sure that this doesn't happen to you. So the first one is we want to look at your life. And this is one of the worksheets that you guys will get at the end of this session. First thing you want to be looking at and thinking about is your life and ultimately what you want to look like. Why is this important? This is important because far too often we see people that build successful businesses and they're ultimately not happy in life. We've seen people that have gotten divorced because they spent so much time building their business. We've seen parents that have, resented their business because it took them away from these golden years with their kids, right? So the first thing you want to think about is, what do you ultimately want your life to look like? And this was a question that Ariana and I had to ask ourselves after I spent a whole bunch of money on a training session to become a real estate investor. And we could clearly tell that we weren't on the same page. So what you want to be thinking about is, first off, your purpose. So if you're single, this is really what you want your life to look like. If you have a family, this is something we recommend that you do with your spouse and then even involve your kids. And your purpose is really thinking about, what is it that you ultimately want to achieve in life? We talk about core values, thinking about what really guides you. And then what kind of legacy, not only do you want to leave, but what kind of legacy do you want to live? Unfortunately, too many people wait till they're on their deathbed to say like, oh, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm reflecting in my life. We want you guys to think forward. Think about what you want life to look like in the future. And then now that you're aware of that, you can start making those changes now. Second thing we want you guys to think about is your vision. So what do you want things to look like in the future? And what we found is that we can bucket them down into these four major categories. The first one is, what kind of things do you want? And this is where most of us go naturally. Like, I want this type of house. I want this type of car, right? What physical things do we want? Then we get into the next category, which is, what experiences do you want? So maybe you want to be able to travel with your family. Maybe you want to have the experience of being debt-free, right? So you want to think about those. And what we found is most people focus on those two a lot initially. And then once they have the things, like once you have the house you want, once you have those experiences, a lot of us kind of hit this point of becoming a little bit depressed. And what we find is that it's really these two other points that ultimately make us happy. First is relationships. So thinking about the people you have in your life and the people that you want to build stronger relationships with, as well as an impact, how you're not only taking care of yourself, but then able to help other people in a way that matters. So this first action we're going to have you guys do is carve out some time and really start thinking about what you want your life to look like in the future. This is the 30,000 foot view of ultimately where you want to go. And like I said, if you're in a relationship, if you have a family, do this with your family members as well, so you can make sure that you're all aligned and you're not going off on this random direction that's maybe disconnected from the rest of your family. Okay, next step from here is now we want to figure out, how do we get there, right? We've got this big picture vision of the future. And what we often talk about is we compare this to a GPS. You're going to set your destination on the GPS, which is what we just did. You're going to set your current state of where you are today. And then what your GPS is going to do is build a roadmap to help get you there, right? So they're going to build a plan to go from where you're at to where you want to be. So you want to do the same type of thing. So on this secondary worksheet, we have this roadmap that basically starts with today and gives you a roadmap out for like the next 5 years. And the time frame doesn't matter. Some people like to go out for the next 10 years. But the important thing here is that you've got some long-term, medium, and short-term goals, which are really milestones. And what they're helping you to do is to go from where you're at today to all those things on that big picture vision board that you have. And what you want to be doing is, as you're thinking about, like, for example, buying a new house, thinking about where that fits on your roadmap. Is that something to do in the next year? Is that a 3-year goal, right? If you want to leave your job, what's the time frame for that? So as you start setting all of these goals, what you can start doing is laying them out on your roadmap and say, does this logically make sense? Is there maybe too much that I'm trying to do in the next year, and it would be good to shift some of the lower priority things out into the future? Like one of the things Ariana and I did was, we wanted to build this new house. And as we started laying this out, one of the things we realized was that we were actually better off to delay building the house for a couple of years while we built the businesses, so that we had more flexibility when they came around. And we would have never got there if we didn't lay things out this way and really start talking about trade-offs and priorities and what was really important to us. And then what you'll see on the bottom of this is actually your monthly lifestyle cost. So once you lay this map out, then what you want to look at is, along the way, how much is it going to cost you to live that lifestyle? And so today, this is basically what your monthly expenses are. But let's say you go and buy that new house. That might increase your mortgage. So you want to understand how much money you're going to need to make in the future. And what you'll see, we'll take it into the next step, is that we can then design your business to make sure that your business is set up in a way to give you enough money to achieve all of these things on your life. So your action for this step is to ultimately take that big picture vision of your life, and I want you to start breaking that down into smaller goals and laying them out over the next 3, 5, 1 year. Okay, now that we've got big picture, now that we got our roadmap, final thing we want to look at here is really the next 90 days. And at this point, we almost want to forget about all the rest of the stuff we did and really focus in. And what this is going to allow us to do is to make sure that we're doing the actions that are going to be required to achieve our short-term goals while not neglecting the long-term. Because one of the biggest challenges people have is that they'll set goals and then they'll go about doing a whole bunch of actions that don't directly contribute to that goal. And then they get to the end of the time frame from when they set the goal and they're like, oh, I didn't achieve it. When you reflect back, oftentimes it's because your actions weren't aligned with the goals. So what we want you to do is get super clear on what are the specific goals for the next 90 days. And then for your personal life, we're going to have you answer 5 questions. In order to achieve those goals, what things do you need to start doing? Maybe there's some new habits. Maybe there's some things you need to learn. What things do you need to stop doing, right? Maybe there's habits that aren't helping you or aren't supporting you getting to those goals. What things are you already doing that you need to continue doing? What things do you need to do more of? So for example, maybe you're already doing some of this, but you need to do more of it. And what things do you need to do less of? For example, maybe it's watching TV. We're not going to get rid of TV. It's still something you enjoy, but maybe you do less TV to create some space to now focus on these goals. So what you want to do is get super clear on the actions that you need to take for the next 90 days. And then what we also want you to do is look at your finances. And the goal as we move forward here is to continuously increase your wealth or your net worth. And what we want to do is ultimately decrease your debt while that's going on. So if you're in debt right now, month by month, you want to be decreasing that debt and chipping away. You also want to then be increasing your wealth and how much you're worth, and then tracking your expenses and your income and making sure that we're continuously increasing our income, and then as much as we can decrease our expenses so there's a bigger gap there. Because the more difference we have between the amount of money we make and the amount of money we spend, the easier it's going to be to build our wealth, pay down our debt, and do all the things that we want to do on that life planner. Okay, so with that, your activity coming out of here is really to complete these 2 pages. First page is your big picture view. Second page is that roadmap and getting you down to the specific 90 days. Like I said, we'll have links to this at the end of the workshop. And, I love what Rick had said after he had gone through this Plan with Purpose course that we had, where we really took him through a lot of these things. He said it was really the perfect combo of simple and effective. And like I said earlier, the whole goal of this system is to keep it simple. So you'll see the whole plan really fits on 2 pages. And what we like to have you guys do is every 90 days, you go back to that plan and you update it. So it does take a little bit of time your first time doing it, but then as you update it and as you move on from there, it's actually really simple. Okay, so let's dive into the second reason that people fail. And often it's they lack that process or lack that system. They set the goal, but then afterwards, the goal falls apart a couple weeks in. So we want to introduce you guys to this model that we use that's going to help you run your business and really avoid that. We call it business SEO. So no, this is not search engine optimization. It's what we call strategy, execution, and optimization. And these are really the 3 key pieces, the framework that you're going to use as you run your business. So let's dive into a little bit of what this looks like. Strategy is really the big picture thinking for your business. This is the decisions that you make that ultimately help you figure out where your business is going to go and how your business is going to win. So when we think about strategy, we like to talk about what comes into strategy is your vision for the business, for the company, and then ultimately all the ideas that you have. Right. And then depending on the size of your business, you might have a team. You're obviously going to have to be the leader of your business. You're going to have some data and a culture that you build. But what comes out of strategy and out of you leading your business is a set of goals and timelines for achieving those goals, as well as projects and tasks, things that you're actually going to do to ultimately achieve those goals. So that's the first piece. Second piece is once you set the strategy, once you set the goals, you then want to look at execution. And execution is all about the running of your business. So we like to compare running a business to like a car engine. If you think about it for a car, you need gas to go. There's a bunch of different components that work together in your car to make it move forward. And the outcome is the car moves to the destination. Your business is much the same way. So leads or prospects come in, people that potentially want to buy your product or service. And then there's 4 main components that your business is going to be focusing on. Marketing takes those leads, gathers them, nurtures them, and gets them ready to buy. Sales then takes the people that are ready to buy, helps convert them into customers. Finance lets you collect the money and pay yourself, pay your taxes, pay all of your expenses. And then operations is really helping you deliver the product or service to your paying customers, give them a really good experience. And the outcome of all of this is that you have happy customers. And if you do this right, if you build your business in a right way, those happy customers now go back through and buy more and become repeat customers. So that's what we're really looking for. But execution is where we're going to take the projects and the tasks that we came out of to hit our goals, and they're likely going to fall into different parts of your business that maybe one of your goals is to make more money. So in order to make more money, you maybe are running a marketing campaign. So execution is going to be what pieces we actually do to help achieve those goals. And then finally, optimization. This is a part that a lot of business owners miss, and it's what causes them to ultimately hit burnout and limits their business from growing. So optimization, what we're really looking at here is looking at what did we expect to happen or what did we like to have happen versus what actually have happen and constantly make it better. So usually when we're working with businesses, especially the ones that are disorganized or burnt out, what's happening is that they're very low effectiveness. So they're doing a lot of things, but it's not ultimately helping them achieve their goal. And they're doing a lot of that inefficiently, which means they're spending a lot of time and they're not really getting a good return on the time, energy, people, focus that they're putting into their business. So the optimization piece comes in where you're reflecting, like once you've set the goals and once you've taken some of the action, you're reflecting what went well, what didn't go well. You're identifying what problems came up, and then you're working on trying to come up with solutions for those problems, and then you're going to go out and test those solutions. So one of the things we have every business do is a weekly meeting. Part of what you do in this weekly meeting is identify the problems or identify where you're off track, and then ultimately say, what are we going to try to do this week to fix that problem or to improve this process? And by doing this and really baking it into your system of how you run your business and ultimately your life, what you're able to do is then over time create these highly efficient, highly effective systems, which lets you get a lot more done, spending a lot less time, a lot less money. So with that kind of high level overview, what we now want to do is talk about how do you set and achieve goals for your business. And you're going to notice this is actually very similar to what we did for your life. So we're going to start first with this high level strategy. And for your business, you want to get a good feeling of, what is the identity or the purpose of your business? What's your mission? What's the promise that you're giving to your customers, known as the brand promise? When they come and buy from you, what's the expectation they're going to get? What are your core values? And what makes your business, unique from all the competitors? So we want to get some idea of that for your business. Second thing we want to do is really hone in and focus on who your business serves. So every business exists to serve customers. So you want to get super clear on who do you serve, what are their challenges, what is the ultimate result or transformation that you provide, and how do you know you've been able to achieve that? So what we're looking for here is getting super clear on who you're trying to help with your business. And then what we want to look at is really long-term, 10 years, 5 years, where do you want the business to be? So what this helps you do is to get a vision for the future. And then you'll see in the next step is we're ultimately going to break that down. So very similar between our life and our business. We want to get a big picture. We want to then start building a path there and a roadmap. And then we'll get to the next step where we ultimately break it down. But for you guys, one of the actions I want you to take coming out of here is to think about your business. If you don't have a business yet, this is going to be something that you're going to want to consider. If you already have a business and maybe you're missing some of these elements, this is going to be something that you can go back and fill in. Because when you have complete clarity on this, it helps making decisions in your business a heck of a lot easier. Then once we have the big picture, just like with your personal goals, we're now going to break that down. And for your business, we're going to look at the next year. And one of the things you're going to see here is that we've got some financial information on here. So at the top, you want to be thinking about what are your 1-year goals? A question I love to ask people is, if we talk 1 year from now, tell me what you want the business to look like. What has happened? How much money has the business made? How much money have you been able to make? And then what else does the business look like? What else have you been able to accomplish? Those are your 1-year goals. Then what we can do is break those down just like we did personal goals into these 90-day chunks. And so we can say, let's say, for example, your business wanted to make $500,000 this year. Well, offhand, that might sound overwhelming. But when we start breaking that down into 90 days, what that forces us to do is to think about how much money do we want to make in the next 90 days, the 90 days after that. And then we can say, okay, what goals or what things do we need to have happen in order to make those 90-day goals fit? So we go from a very big picture vision of the business down to the 1-year goals, down to 90-day goals. And what this will then allow you to do is say, yes, I know that we want to have a $500,000 business in a year, but in the next 90 days, maybe my goal is $75,000. And then I can start saying, what are the key goals that I have in order to achieve that? So it really lets you focus in. So what I want you guys to do from here is if you haven't defined 1-year goals yet, that's going to be one of your actions. And then specifically, especially because we're just starting Q2 now, I want you to break the 1-year goal down into specific goals that you want to achieve in the next 90 days. And now with that, I just want to give you guys a simple structure for when you're setting goals. And what this will help you do is to be super clear on what the goal is and more importantly, how you know when it's done. So the structure is you want to go from whatever the current state is to the future or desired state by a certain time frame. Once you have that, you're going to want to list the 3 to 5 key actions that you believe you need to do in order to achieve that goal. You want to think about what routines, what do you have to do every single day in order to achieve this goal? And then you want to set at least 2 metrics. One that will help you see when you've achieved the goal, for example, how much money you want to make. And then one that will help you determine what activities you need to do in order to achieve the goal. So let's give some examples here. We'll show you, if you guys aren't familiar, our avatar, his name's actually Sam. So one of the things we often do with all of our programs, all of our worksheets, is we create samples. You see what I did there? And so in this case, an example would be you want to go from 4 clients to 8 clients by September 30th. So now it's super clear. Where am I starting? Where do I want to end up? And what's the time frame? Key actions might be identify the marketing channels to get these new clients, craft an acquisition funnel, basically a process to help move them along and help them become clients, and then start actually outreaching to potential clients and working them through that funnel. A routine, something you got to do every single day, might be sending those outreach messages. Lagging metric to understand have we achieved the goal or not is the total number of clients. And then a leading metric, and this is what people often forget, is I'm not going to be able to tell if I have 8 clients until I have 8 clients. And then once I figure out that I only have 6, it's really going to be too late for me to identify, oh, well, I can't really make a change now. Leading metrics will ultimately tell you what steps along the way can you focus on, and then they'll help predict if you're going to be able to hit the goal. So for example, the example that I like to use all the time is if you're trying to lose 30 pounds in the next 90 days, you can break that down, and each week you can jump on the scale. Now, when you jump on the scale, it's going to tell you, hey, you weigh a certain amount. That's not necessarily going to tell you, well, what do you have to do in order to make sure that next week you're losing the weight? But if you have leading indicators of saying reducing the calories you take in and expending the calories that you go out with, what you then can do is say, well, I got to make sure that I'm reducing calories and that I'm working out more. Same thing in business. What we can do here is in order to get clients, we look at the steps that happened before, and we can say, well, the path to get a client is I outreach to them, I do a discovery call, I do a sales call, and they become a client. So if I'm tracking those metrics, now week to week, I can say, well, I'm not hitting my goal, I'm not getting the clients. Well, why is that? Well, maybe I'm not outreaching enough. So I know I can make an adjustment next week to outreach to more people, because if I get enough people outreaching, then I got to focus on getting them onto calls. So this really helps when we not only set the goal, but then we can ultimately track and make adjustments along the way, because we know exactly where we are every single week. So I know I went through that kind of quick. If you guys have any questions on that, let me know and I'll make sure I circle back at the end of this. So now that you've got your 90-day goals set up, what we want to do is actually go from goals to projects. And what we actually do is have people start with their revenue goals. Now, some people aren't really big fans of talking about the money, or it makes them a little squirmish. The whole reason that we want to set revenue goals is because money itself doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it helps us to get those goals that we laid out in our personal life, right? For example, you might have said, I need to make $5,000 a month personally in order to cover all my expenses. So now when we set a goal to, let's say, make $10,000 a month in the business, we know that the reason we need to make that is because we have needs in our personal life. And if you have a bigger business, you might have to make more money to make sure that you're taking care of your team and paying everybody. So we want to get super clear on what the financials need to be. But then what we do here is we actually go a step further. If we need to make $10,000 a month, we actually want to break down and start defining how are we going to make that money. Now, if you're just launching your business, you might only have one product or service, which is what we recommend, and 100% of that money might come from that one product or service. If you've been in business for a while, or if you have multiple products or service, you're going to want to break down how much of the money is going to come from each one. You know, let's say that you had a service where you were helping people, and then you had a product they could buy. You might say 50% of my revenue comes from each, or you might say 70% comes from the service. Depending on how you break that down, that's going to have a very big impact as to what projects and what actions you have to take to make each of that true. So what you want to do is think about each product, what we're going to call here revenue streams that you have, and think about how much money is going to come from each of those. So your action is to figure out how many different revenue streams does your business have. And when you start defining how much money you want to make in the next 90 days, figuring out how much is going to come from each of those revenue streams. Then once you've broken that down, and let's say, you're going to make 70% of your money from your services, now what we got to do is actually say, okay, great. How are we going to do that? So this is where you start looking at what marketing and sales activities are you going to do? And what you'll see on here is you actually want to track some numbers. So if there's a 5-step process that people go through before they buy from you, you're going to want to track metrics at each step so that you understand where people are getting stuck. So for example, let's say that for people to buy your service, they come to your website, they go to your sales page, they go to your order page, and then they ultimately become a customer. You can track each of those steps every single week. And let's say you're not hitting your income goals for that service, you can go back and say, oh, the problem is people are getting to my sales page, but they're not ultimately purchasing. So the area that you've got to go and fix the problem on is your sales page. Maybe the offer's not good. Maybe the button doesn't work. But this will start alerting you into where the problem is and then letting you know what to focus on in the next week to fix. And what we want to think about is the key actions. So these are really the projects you're going to do. So let's say you want to increase the amount of revenue you're making. Well, maybe you need to get more people to your website. So you're going to do a social media marketing strategy for that. Or maybe you're going to start running a paid marketing strategy, and you're going to do Facebook ads or YouTube ads. What you want to do is identify the 3 to 5 major projects that you're going to do in order to make this happen. Then you got to think about what people do I need? Are you going to do everything? Or do you have team members that are going to be involved in helping you with some of these projects? Or do you maybe need to hire some team members? Maybe if you don't have a team yet, you need to hire a virtual assistant. Then you want to think about what kind of mindset and discipline do you need? So when we're setting goals, I always recommend you set goals just outside of your comfort zone. And one of the things that requires is growth. So you got to think about what things are going to help you get there and what things are maybe going to hold you back. Maybe there's, some imposter syndrome coming in. And one of the things you want to do is identify that so that you can then figure out actions to overcome that. And finally, what you want to figure out is, is there anything new that you need to learn, or is there any new tools or technology that you need to buy? Because in some cases, as you're going to set some of these goals, you might need a new piece of software, or you might need to buy a new training course or a new book to give you the skills. So by going through all of this, you now come out with a super clear plan of what's my goal, how am I going to make that money, what are the major projects I have to do, and then what are the key numbers that I have to track every single week to let me know if I'm on track. So for you guys, what I want you to do at this point is then break down each of your revenue streams into the major projects and what's going to be required to actually make that happen. Okay, final piece here is now that you've got your plans all broken out, what you want to do is set up what we call this execution cadence. And that's really just a fancy term for meetings. And what you'll see on here is we got a couple different graphics, but you want to have these different meetings to help you focus on the right things. So every single day, you're going to have a quick 15-minute meeting to plan out your day. Every week, you're going to have like an hour-long meeting to reflect on the last week, see how things went, and then to plan the upcoming week. Every month, you're going to have a little bit longer meeting that will help you set monthly budgets, and then take a look and say, hey, we're 30 days into our 90-day goals. How are we doing? Are there any adjustments we need to make, right? Then quarterly, every 90 days, which is exactly what we're doing now. Ariana and I are actually doing this tomorrow. We're putting a whole day aside to say, hey, how did the last 90 days go? What did we learn? And then based on that, what goals do we have and what projects do we have? And then every year doing the same type of thing, but now looking at the whole year. So what you want to do is ultimately schedule each of these meetings on your calendar so that it's not like you're forgetting about them. Every day you have your meeting where you're planning your day. Every week you have your meeting where you're reflecting on your week and you're going from there. So I know we went through a lot there. We'll be giving you guys these worksheets at the end, but if you have any questions along the way, if any of this is confusing, put a comment up and we'll go through it in the Q&A. And I love getting comments like this. So Amanda says, where have you two been? This is exactly what I need. I've looked at everything else before, but it's all so complicated. And so what you'll see is we've been able to take a lot of this and put it into a couple basic sheets and really walk you step by step through that. Okay, the final thing is why people fail is they have the wrong focus. And this comes up a ton when you're in business. And so we've worked with a lot of different businesses, very large, very small, just getting started. And what we found is that there's these common stages that every business goes through. And one of the big problems comes in is when you're, let's say it's stage 1, and you're trying to do things that are required at stage 2. And what that causes is you're fixing the wrong problems. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. We have everybody start out with what we call the foundation. Now, at each step along the way, there's going to be a core problem that you have or that you're trying to solve. And then there's going to be a goal of what it looks like when you've solved that. So for most people, the foundation, the problem is you don't have core habits, routines, or organization in place to really maximize your resources, which are time, money, and energy. And so what we have everybody go through is, regardless of which stage your business is at, is this foundations. This is putting routines in place, getting clear on your vision and your goals, helping you to create that roadmap of moving forward, helping you to get routines and habits in place that will support you and help you show up best for your business and for your family, and ultimately helping you develop the right mindset for success. Because as we all know, being an entrepreneur is challenging, right? So this foundation helps get everyone, like it's the foundation, it's called that for a reason, helps get all of this so that you have space to succeed. Then your first step in business is stage 1. And the problem when you're just starting a business is you haven't proven your product or service yet. You don't have anybody that's paying you money for it, or maybe only a couple. So the problem we want to solve here is we want to get our first set of sales and make sure that we actually understand who we're solving a problem for, what problems they have, that we've created the right solution for them, it's priced right, and that we have a sales process down so that somebody sees the value, gives you money, and you're helping them get results. So in stage 1, the whole focus is getting all those pieces lined up so you can make your first set of sales. At this stage, you're not trying to build out a marketing plan. You're not trying to be on multiple social media platforms. In a lot of cases, you may not even have a website at this stage because the core focus is on getting sales. And so you're going to be creating your product, you're going to be talking to a lot of people, and you're going to be working on selling and getting your sales script down. Now, once you graduate, then you get into stage 2. And once you had your initial launch, you got your initial set of customers, now the problem you have is that you haven't built out marketing or sales, so you don't have more customers coming in to buy. So that's what you need to build out here, right? In this case, then the goal is to ultimately build out a marketing and sales system that continuously attracts the right people and then works them through a sequence so that they become customers. So in this case, you're going to be working on building out a marketing strategy, nurturing people through that process, really looking at each stage and seeing where they get stuck. This is where a website might come in. This is where, depending on what your business is, paid advertising might come in. This is where you're understanding what does that overall customer journey look like? And when they have a problem, where are they looking? Are they looking on Google? Are they looking on social media? Are they looking in their local newspaper? But you want to understand when someone has a problem, where do they start? And then what do they need at each step of the way to ultimately get nurtured and get supported so that they can become a customer. So this is where we're building that out. And then once you've got consistent sales and marketing coming in, the next problem you're going to run into in business is now you've got sales and now you're making money. But ultimately what's happening is that it's taking a lot of your time. You're now trying to create your product or service. You're trying to deliver it. You're working on getting more sales and marketing coming in. And a lot of times this leads to burnout. So what you then need at this stage is to start building out systems, processes, teams, so that as the business grows, you're focused on your zone of genius and you have other people taking care of the day-to-day. So this is where you guys might have heard working on your business, not in your business. What we want to do is get you guys as the owners of the business to do more of the working on and help you set up team systems processes to ultimately let the business run without you having to be involved in everything. So with this, your activity is to say, what stage of business am I in? And then based on that, what problem am I trying to solve? And what are some of the key things I need to focus on for that? Because one of the things we see people, especially in this first stage, they get stuck all the time because they're out, like, for example, creating a podcast. Creating a podcast is a longer term marketing strategy that will help people find you and then nurture them to become a customer. But if you're trying to do that in stage one, when you're trying to just figure out your product or service, you're trying to solve the wrong problem. So in a lot of times when people start working with us, what we do is kind of first audit their business, see what their goals are and see where they're spending time. And a lot of times we'll have them cut out some of those activities to pick up later on when they get to that point. So figure out where you guys are at and figure out what you should be focused on and if there's anything that you need to cut. And so just a couple examples here. Nick was struggling with this for a while. And when we took him back to that first stage and had him validate his idea, he said this stuff sucks, but it really works, and he's right. And we had, this was Norden, another client. He said, when I came in, I had a profitable business, but I didn't have controls. And Norden was really on the path to burnout. He was in that third stage. So what we helped Norden with was get systems and processes in place and hire a team so that he wasn't having to do everything. So that's why it's so important to understand where you're at, because then you can focus on the right things. So 45 minutes in, I know we covered a lot. And my promise to you at the beginning of this workshop was to give you simple system with actionable steps. So what I want to hear from you guys, and be honest, was I able to deliver that for you? Do you feel like now that you've gone through this, you have a much better understanding of the process of not only setting goals, but then the steps to take those goals, turn them into projects, and then take those projects and make sure you're focusing on the right things for your business to help you move forward and achieve what you're looking for in the next 90 days. All right, sweet. So what I want to talk to you guys at this point is you really have two choices. So I talked at the beginning of this workshop about commitment. And so your first choice is you can stay on the path that you're on now. And if you do that, you're going to get the same results you've gotten in the past. Now, if those results have been working for you, this may be a very good option. You can take some of the things you learned today, go off and execute them. Love that if that works for you. The second choice is if you realize that you've been doing the work and you haven't seen the results you want, you haven't seen the success, is that you can make a decision today and you commit to changing and doing something different to help you succeed and help you get on the path you want to be. So I'm telling you guys, this is completely up to you. But what I want you guys to do is to intentionally make a decision. Make the decision to say, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm going to stay on that course, or I'm not, and I'm going to commit to doing what I need to make a change. So I love this quote. This is one of the quotes I come back to all the time. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used to create them. And there's been a lot of times as we've grown our businesses that I've gotten stuck because I kept trying to do the same thing over and over. And every time we would set goals and come back, we wouldn't achieve them. And I couldn't figure out why. And that was often when having some outside perspective and getting me new ways of thinking helped me solve those problems. And so I want you guys to think about, how do you know if you need help? So ask some of these questions to yourself. So first question is, are you happy with the success that you've had thus far? Are you where you expected to be at this point? When I set that goal to retire by 35, we got about halfway through and I realized that we weren't halfway towards getting there. And by doing that, I realized I had to make a shift, right? Are you using a system like the one that we talked about today to help you guys set goals, to understand where you should be focusing, and then showing you how to make adjustments along the way so that you're not just setting the plan and then disappointed at the end of 90 days? Do you have a clear understanding of the current problem that you need to solve and then how you're going to solve it, right? Identifying the problem is really the first step. If you don't identify the right problem, you're going to spend a bunch of time solving the wrong one. Do you know how to maximize your time so that you're focused on the most valuable activities in your business and not bogged down or really taken away by a bunch of stuff that you shouldn't be doing? Do you have a scorecard or some other system that shows you how your business is performing, how each of those components is performing, where issues are, and then what you need to focus on resolving? It's amazing how many people don't know day to day or week to week how their business is doing, and then they end up disappointed at the end. And when we introduce and we have business owners look at their financials and look at scorecards, it's amazing. They're like, oh my gosh, it was like I was blind before. I was running my business blind. So if you don't have something like this in place, definitely something you want to get some help with. Are you fully leveraging automation and delegation as you grow your business so that it doesn't take over your life and lead to burnout? And I'll be completely honest, we got towards the end of last year, and this was something that we realized we weren't even doing ourselves, even though we teach a lot of people this, and so Ariana was getting to the point where she was starting to hit some of that burnout, and she ended up taking a couple months away. And during that time, one of the things we really talked about was, what do we need to do? What needs to be different so that we can continue running our businesses without having them take over our lives and really helping us lead to this burnout? And that's a major thing that we're now focusing on going into this year, is really saying, what do we need to put in place so that we can continue helping as many people as we can without burning ourselves out? That's a critical one. Do you know the next hire that you need to make for your business and how you're going to hire and onboard that person to make sure that they're actually supporting you, not draining more of your energy? No. And I know that was a whole bunch of questions, but if you don't have these things, your next step is to get answers to some of them and figure out how you're going to get them. And I'll tell you from personal experience, the fastest way to get help with these things is to get somebody to help you. And now, so once again, you have two choices. First choice is you stay on the path you're on, take a little bit of what you learned today and apply that. The second choice is you can make that commitment to do something different to get you on a different path. And now I want to tell you guys that help doesn't have to come from us. So when you decide, when you make that commitment to do something different, the next thing you got to do is figure out who is the right person or who is the right company to help me. And what I want you guys to do is go through these 5 questions as you're evaluating who to get help from. Does that company have a track record of success? Unfortunately, I see so many people that come to us that say, I just spent $1,000 or $5,000 or $20,000 on this coach, and I didn't get the results I was looking for. And when I go and do a little bit of due diligence, I'm like, well, last year that person wasn't a business coach, and now suddenly they are. They probably don't have a track record. You didn't do your due diligence. Second question, are they getting their clients results? Because there's a lot of times where somebody's really good at what they do. Maybe they built a successful business. Maybe they had a certain unfair advantage, but they haven't been able to help other people. Like if you guys have had a professor or a teacher that was maybe super smart at what they did, but they were a terrible teacher, you know what I'm talking about. So you want to make sure not only do they know their stuff, but are they actually able to apply that and help their clients or their students get results? Are they a good fit for working with you? There's a lot of times where a company might be really good, but they might not align on values with you, or there just might not be a connection. And if you're looking for somebody to help you out, you want to make sure that you actually enjoy that company or that person you're going to be working with, and they're the right fit for you. From a coaching perspective, one of the important questions is that person or is their team going to directly support you? Unfortunately, there's a lot of programs out there. Well, you'll buy a program and you'll get a set of videos and a set of worksheets. And if you run into problems, or if your business is a little bit different, you don't have any support. So what you want to make sure is that not only are you getting training and some of the training materials, but also that you have a way to get, support and accountability as you're going through. And then finally, this last one really comes down to you. Are you committed to taking action? Because the first 4 don't matter if you're not making a commitment. Because you can have the right company with the right track record that gets other people results, that's a good fit for you. And if you're not making the commitment to doing the work, none of that matters. So if you're interested in having me help you set and achieve your goals and walk you through support in creating a business that creates more impact and a life that is ultimately allowing you to do what you want to do, here's how I can help. So I've got a handful of spots that I've set aside next week for you guys to jump on a call with me. And here's what we're going to do on these calls. These calls are free. There's no obligation to purchase. The whole point of these calls is for us to be able to get together, help you get clarity and understand what's stopping you from succeeding, and then giving you a path or giving you a guidance forward to ultimately get there and overcome those obstacles. So if you guys are committed and if you guys are booking a call, here's exactly what it's going to look like. So we're going to jump on there and I'm going to ask you questions and help you get super clear on what it is that you want to achieve. I'm going to help you get super clear on what's getting in the way and holding you back from achieving that. I'm going to help you get super clear on the next steps that you need to do to fix that. And if at the end of all of that, it makes sense for us to work together, I'm going to share with you how to do that. And the reason we go through this process is just like you saw before, there's different stages of business and we have different solutions based on where you're at and what help you need. So by helping you get clear on this, whether you work with us or somebody else, it's going to help you know what you should be doing next and what the focus should be. So first question that always comes up is what's the cost? And I'm going to tell you guys right now, there's definitely an investment if we end up working together, but I will also tell you that the investment is appropriate based on where your business is at. You know, when I first started in business, you guys have probably heard, I spent $7,500 on this real estate investment training, and that was crazy. There's no reason, especially in this day and age, to spend that much money to get started. You can get started at a lot lower cost. And then as your business grows, you continue to take the money you're making and reinvest in. So I'll tell you, there is a cost, but it's definitely appropriate based on where your business is at. So if you guys are ready to commit and take action and you feel like I'm the right person to help you at least get clear, let's get a call scheduled. So you guys can go to tomandariana.com/apply. You'll answer a couple of quick questions, and then you'll have the opportunity to schedule a call with me. We'll jump on the call. We'll go through and get you some of that clarity, and then we'll make sure you're set up for your next steps. Now, I promised you guys that if you stayed to the end, we would give you copies of everything. So with that, you guys go to tomandariana.com/starter-pack. You're going to be able to download, no opt-in or anything required, the life planner as well as the business planner. So these are going to be all those worksheets that I walked through above. And if you guys took notes or if you guys are watching the replay and you have each of those actions, you'll be able to go through step by step through here, get clarity on both your life vision and goals, your business vision and goals, and have you set up for your next steps. Now, just a couple more things before we get to the Q&A. So oftentimes it's challenging when you hop on a workshop like this or you see somebody online and, just want to share a couple things that other people have said really nice about me. We can't always tell from Facebook group and online, who to trust, but Tom really stands out. Not only is professional, but he also gets business. And then Craig, it was funny, Craig had posted this up actually before he became a client. He said, I just know the quality of what Tom and Ariana put out. And if the free stuff's this good, I know the paid program's great. So Craig, when he posted this up, was actually looking to become a client in the future, and then he ultimately did. So he said this even before he started working with us. And like you guys have seen, we don't hold anything back. We give you guys everything we have. And then if you guys need more support, that's what we're here for. So with that, if you guys want to book your call, tomandariana.com/apply. I got a bunch of sessions open over the next couple of days and into next week to help you guys get that clarity. So with that, let me know what questions you guys have. I'm going to go through here and try to grab questions. If there's any questions that pop up now or while I'm answering, let me know. Okay, first question. How do you know when to pivot and when to keep pushing with a certain strategy if it seems like it's not working? Great question. And especially as entrepreneurs, this is something we run into all the time. So anytime we're looking to do something new, there's a reason that we set 90-day goals. that's a great time period to test something out. So if you're trying a new strategy, set those 90-day goals and commit to implementing that strategy for the next 90 days. Now, part of it is that commitment. The other part of it is having those metrics that will help guide you on what's working and what's not so you can tweak it. So if you think about it, it's essentially like when you're in high school science, you would set a hypothesis. I believe that if I do this, this thing will happen. Then you run an experiment, and at the end of the experiment, you check in and say, did that meet my hypothesis? If not, what did I learn? And I'm going to set a new hypothesis. That's essentially what you want to be doing with strategies every single week. So you're going to set the overall strategy, and you're like, let's say, you're trying to get more people interested in your offer. Well, and you identify the problem is just not enough people are seeing it. So you're going to set a hypothesis of maybe saying, if I go and start posting it in these groups, or if I start getting in front of this audience, that'll bring 100 people to my website this week. So now it's clear on what the action is and what the desired outcome is. We do that strategy at the end of the week. We come back and say, all right, was that correct or not? Well, I got 50 people to the website. Okay, it wasn't quite 100, but it seems like it's working. Let me try it again and see if that trend continues. Or you might come back at the end of the week and it's like, well, only 10 people came. Well, that was very far off, so clearly I've got to do something different. But that's part of why having that scorecard to help you track these key metrics, and then every single week checking in on that and basically saying, what did I learn? And then what do I have to do next? So if you're doing that every single week for 12 weeks, over the course of 90 days, you've been able to not only set the strategy, but also adjust it. And then if by the end of 12 weeks, something's not working, that gives you an opportunity to say, clearly the strategy isn't working, or I need to do something else. And then that gives you an opportunity to pivot as you go into the next 90 days. Now, there might be times where you get a couple weeks in and you just are clear that's not going to work and you pivot away. But what you're looking for is, are you making forward progress? And is that forward progress moving at the right speed to help you achieve your goals? So let me know if that answers the question or if there's any follow-ups from there. All right, what do we got next in terms of questions? Okay, so these meetings feel weird if you're a solo entrepreneur. Any advice how to do these regularly or properly? Absolutely. First thing is go find another solo entrepreneur and do these together. Even if you guys have completely separate businesses, doing it together will, one, hold you each accountable. It's just like having a gym buddy. If you're trying to work out alone, easy to skip that, easy to kind of feel isolated. But especially if you're working in your own business, having somebody else to do that with helps a lot. Whether you do that or not, part of this is just scheduling it on the calendar and then building an agenda that works for you. So for example, these daily meetings, everyone should be having them. And essentially all the daily meeting is planning out your day, taking a look at your calendar and saying, what meetings do I have, or what things have to be done at a specific time, versus what tasks do I have to do and what do I want to complete today? What's my intention? Then the weekly meeting is just taking a step back, saying like, how did this week go? My intention was to get this many new customers, right? How did that go? Did I get that many customers or did I not? So it's just taking some time to reflect what things went well, what things didn't go well, and then setting your plan for the next week. All right, so now if I look at the next week, I've got these meetings, so I schedule my calendar, and I've got these things that I've got to do, right? So the agendas are definitely going to be a little bit different if it's just by yourself versus with somebody else. But what you ultimately want to do is think about the outcome. The outcome of, say, those weekly meetings is to make sure that you understand where you're at in the business and you know what to focus on next. All right. So Monique says, say we see that we failed at achieving a goal for the last quarter. What things do we put on our Q2 plans that aren't a copy and paste, but will ensure that we get working on it? Great question. So when we're at the end of a quarter or at the end of 90 days and we realize that we didn't achieve a goal, one of the first things we want to dive into is what things went well. Well, first off, how close did we get? Did we get 25% of towards the goal, or did we get 90%? If we got 90%, we're going to finish the rest of it really in the next couple of weeks. So it's probably not a big deal. If we got 25%, there was a big disconnect somewhere. Either we set the goals too high, we didn't have the right strategy. So first thing you want to dive into is understand why. What things went well that helped you get the progress you did? And then what things didn't work, or what challenges did you have that prevented you from ultimately achieving the goal? Once you learn from those lessons, now you can make adjustments this quarter. If the goal was simply too big, we take it back to something that matters. If the goal wasn't too big, we just didn't have the right strategy, we start to identify, okay, what do we need to do to get a different strategy? Maybe it might be dropping one strategy and using another one. Maybe it's going out and getting somebody that has more knowledge and experience to help us implement that strategy. But basically, you want to learn, understand the problem, and then make adjustments in the next 90 days to overcome that problem. Yeah, just a point from Monique. She says, I now see the importance of not only setting goals at the beginning, but checking in along the way. That is really one of the most critical things. If you're setting the goals but not checking in, what's happening every single week is that you may get further and further away from the goal but not realize it. It's just like driving in your car with a GPS. Right now, what happens is you miss a turn, your GPS instantly tells you, hey, you missed a turn, rerouting. It's changing the plan because it realizes you're off. If you were going through without having that weekly meeting and checking in on where you're at, it's just like shutting that feature on your GPS off. You miss a turn, but you don't realize it, so you keep driving. And then you get further and further away from your destination. And by the time, the end of 90 days comes up, or, you expect to be there and you look and you're very far away. That easily could have been avoided by having those weekly check-ins and then making adjustments. All right, last call for any questions. You guys have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, we will call this workshop to a close. And just a final reminder, got call sessions open for you guys. So if you guys would like help, support, clarity, and you're ready to make that commitment to doing stuff different, let's grab a call. TomandAriana.com/apply. Look forward to chatting with you guys.